We call our home the blue planet, and it's pretty obvious why. The oceans cover more than 70% of the surface. But here's the crazy part. We know almost nothing about what's actually in them. So yeah, let's dive right in. We're about to journey into the massive, mysterious world hiding right under the waves.
Just let that sink in for a minute. We have mapped the surface of the moon, and even Mars, in greater detail than we have our own ocean floor. So you gotta wonder, what kind of secrets are hiding in that crushing, pitch-black darkness, a world we've barely even scratched the surface of? That's the number, 95%. And look, that's not just some statistic on a side. It's a measure of just how much of our own planet is still a complete mystery. It represents a frontier of potential discoveries, where we could find anything from lost history and impossible geology to creatures that defy our wildest dreams. This is the world we're exploring today. All right, so let's start with what we have actually stumbled upon. In the few spots we've managed to get a good look at, we found things so bizarre they make us question everything we thought we knew about history and maybe even physics. So, picture this. 5 years back, a Swedish treasure hunting crew, the Ocean X team, is just doing a routine scan of the Baltic seafloor. And then, boom, their sonar pings something huge, perfectly circular, and just, well, something that shouldn't be there, resting on the seabed. And trust me, the details of this thing are just plain weird. It's 60 meters across. That's almost the wingspan of a jumbo jet. And it looks like it's sitting at the end of this 300-meter-long track, almost like it crash-landed and skidded to a halt. But here's the real kicker. Divers who went down there said that when their boat was right over the object, all their electronics, cameras, even their satellite phones would just die. The second they moved away, everything powered back on. That level of electromagnetic interference is just unheard of. And believe it or not, the Baltic anomaly isn't alone in these deep-sea mysteries. Off the coast of Japan, there's another enigma, the Yonaguni Monument. It's really a tale of two debates. With the Baltic anomaly, people point to its perfect shape and say, no way that's natural. But with Yonaguni, geologists say its sharp, geometric look is just a fluke of tectonic shifts. Both of them force us to ask the same question. Are we looking at a freak of nature or evidence of something else entirely? So on one side, you have geologists who are pretty convinced that the monument's crazy sharp angles and flat surfaces are just what happens when tectonic plates grind against each other. But then you have scientists like Professor Masaki Kimura who look at what appear to be staircases cut at perfect right angles and say, absolutely not. Nature doesn't work that precisely. I mean, if he's right, we're talking about a complete rewrite of ancient history, a sophisticated civilization that existed more than 2,000 years ago, before it was lost to the sea. Okay, so we've talked about weird objects. Let's switch gears and talk about weird life. The deep ocean is the biggest habitat on the planet, and it's totally possible that things we thought were extinct for millions of years are still down there, hunting in the dark. Ah, the megalodon. We're talking about a shark the size of a school bus, an absolute monster of an apex predator that would make a great white look like a guppy. Officially, the fossil record says it vanished 1.5 million years ago. But there's some evidence that just doesn't quite line up. For instance, people have dredged up megalodon teeth from the ocean floor that date back to only 10,000 or maybe even 5,000 years ago. Now, those dates are debated, but it just makes you wonder, doesn't it? Could something that massive really just disappear without a trace? And get this, there's a real-life story that makes you think it's totally possible. Researchers in Australia tagged a 3-meter great white, a perfectly respectable predator. All of a sudden, the tag starts sending out a signal that the shark is plummeting, fast, down to nearly 600 meters. Then, the tag's temperature sensor spikes to the internal temperature of a digestive system. It had been eaten. Months later, the tag washes up on a beach. The hunter became the hunted. And the question that haunts scientists to this day is, hunted by what? All right, so we've covered strange objects and even stranger creatures. But what about strange places? There are entire regions of the ocean that are just legendary for being off. Places where the known rules of the world seem to bend and where people have been vanishing for centuries. To really get these places, you have to understand the environment. For the longest time, we just assumed the deep ocean, what we call the abyss, was basically a dead zone, just a cold, empty void. It wasn't until the 20th century that our technology got good enough to show us it's actually packed with life, just really, really weird life that loves extreme pressure and total darkness. Our understanding is so new that filmmaker James Cameron did the first solo dive to the deepest point on Earth just back in 2012. That's how recent all this is.
And when you talk about mysterious zones, there's one name that pops into everyone's head: the Bermuda Triangle. You won't find it on any official maps, but this slice of the Atlantic between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico has become the stuff of legend. Since the 1800s, more than 100 ships and planes have supposedly vanished there, a lot of them in perfectly good weather, without even a distress call. Okay, so forget all the talk about aliens and sea monsters for a second. There's a scientific theory that is honestly way more terrifying. The seabed in that region is loaded with huge pockets of frozen methane gas. If the water temperature changes just a little, these pockets can basically explode, releasing a massive bubble of gas to the surface. This eruption can make the water density drop so fast that any ship floating above it would sink like a rock, instantly. And it doesn't stop there. That massive plume of gas then shoots up into the atmosphere, creating insane turbulence that could easily knock a plane right out of the sky. So from strange places, let's move to our final mystery, which isn't something we've seen, but something we've heard. And it might be the most haunting of all, coming from the deepest, most isolated part of the entire Pacific Ocean. Back in 1997, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, was using a network of underwater microphones to listen for deep-sea volcanoes, and they picked up this sound. A really powerful, super low-frequency sound they nicknamed the bloop, and it totally stumped them. This quote from one of their scientists says it all. It sounded biological, like an animal, but the sheer power of it was just impossible. And to give you an idea of how powerful this was, the sound was so loud, it was detected by sensors over 5,000 kilometers apart. Just think about that. Whatever made that sound had to be, well, let's just say it would dwarf a blue whale, and the blue whale is the biggest animal we know of ever. So what on earth was it? The theories are all over the place. Could it be some giant, undiscovered animal? The sound profile fits, but the size required just doesn't seem possible. A top-secret military sub? Maybe, but the sound was louder than anything we know how to build. The most accepted theory, the official story, is something called a cryosystem, basically a massive iceberg cracking apart. The sound profile is pretty similar, but a lot of people are still not convinced that's the final answer.
And just to make this whole thing a little bit spookier, when scientists pinpointed the origin of the bloop, they traced it to a desolate spot in the South Pacific. That spot happens to be incredibly close to the fictional coordinates that author H.P. Lovecraft gave for the sunken city of R'lyeh, the place where his giant monster Cthulhu is supposedly sleeping. A total coincidence, of course, but a pretty chilling one. So after all of this, after strange relics, potential phantom predators, mysterious dead zones, and sounds from the abyss, we're really just left with more questions than answers. And that brings us right back to where we began. It all comes back to this one single number, 5%. Remember, everything we've just talked about, every weird anomaly, every mind-bending mystery, every single thing that defies easy explanation, it all comes from the tiny little sliver of the ocean that we've actually seen. So I guess the real question, the one I want to leave you with, is this. If this is the kind of stuff we're finding in the first 5%, what in the world is waiting for us in the silent, crushing dark of the other 95%? What are we going to find next?